The communication array crackled to life aboard the Galactic Council's flagship, sending ripples of tension through the bridge crew. Admiral Zektar's 4 eyes widened as the emergency beacon's signature appeared on his screens. The message was brief, transmitted on an encrypted frequency that only the highest military officials knew existed. This is Phantom requesting immediate extraction. Coordinates attached. Situation critical. The bridge fell silent. Even the ship's air recyclers seemed to pause. Phantom. That single word carried more weight than entire fleets, more authority than the Council's combined armies. Every species in known space had heard whispers of that call sign, though few knew the truth behind it. Sir, his communications officer, a nervous Kalani with trembling antennae, looked up from her station. Should I route this to High Command? Zektar's mandibles clicked in what humans might recognize as grim determination. No. Set course immediately. Maximum warp. The Kalani's compound eyes blinked rapidly. But sir, we're in the middle of patrol duties. The Council specifically ordered. The Council, Zektar interrupted, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had served in 3 galactic wars, would court-martial me if I ignored that signal. Do you know who Phantom is, Lieutenant? The young officer shook her head, her confusion evident in the way her antennae drooped. 20 years ago, the Hegemony War nearly destroyed everything we've built. The Vrex Empire had crushed 17 systems in 6 months. Their bioweapons turned entire planets into graveyards. We were losing badly, and High Command was preparing for total evacuation of the core worlds. Zektar moved to the main display, where star charts showed their destination, a small, unremarkable system on the outer rim. That's when Earth volunteered one of their own, a single human. No rank, no fleet, no army, just a call sign and a promise that she could end the war. The bridge crew exchanged glances. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as fierce fighters, but the idea of one soldier changing the tide of an interstellar war seemed impossible. The Council laughed. Zektar continued, his voice taking on a reverent tone. Earth was barely 3 decades into galactic membership. What could one human do against the Vrex war machine? But desperation makes even the proudest species humble. We gave her clearance. The ship shuddered as it jumped to maximum warp, stars streaking past the viewports like silver tears. Phantom infiltrated the Vrex home system. Alone. Through defenses that had repelled entire battle groups, she spent 6 months inside enemy territory, and when she finally made contact again, the Vrex Empire was in complete chaos. Their command structure had collapsed, their bioweapon factories were destroyed, and their most feared generals were dead or missing. A young ensign, barely out of the academy, raised a tentative hand. How did she do it, sir? Zektar's laugh was bitter and full of respect. Nobody knows. The mission files are classified beyond even my clearance level. But the results speak for themselves. The Vrex sued for peace within a week. A war that had lasted 3 years ended because one human decided it should. The ship's navigator, a crystalline being whose voice chimed like wind chimes, spoke up. The coordinates she provided are in the Shadowlands. Admiral, that sector has been quarantined for 15 years. The Shadowlands, Zektar mused, his expression darkening. The Wraith incursion zone. High Command sealed it off after we lost 12 exploration vessels to those things. The Wraiths were a nightmare-made manifest entities of pure energy that could phase through solid matter and drain the life force from any living being they touched. They had appeared in that sector without warning, establishing a foothold that defied all attempts at dislodgement. Eventually, the Council had simply drawn a perimeter and forbidden any ship from entering. Sir. The communications officer's voice was barely a whisper. If Phantom is in the Shadowlands, and she's requesting extraction, then she's been fighting Wraiths for who knows how long, Zektar finished grimly. Alone. The bridge crew processed this information in stunned silence. The Wraiths had destroyed everything the Council had thrown at them. Elite Marines, experimental weapons, even desperate suicide runs. Nothing had worked. The idea that a single being could survive in that hellscape, let alone fight effectively, challenged everything they understood about warfare. ETA to coordinates? Zektar asked. 47 minutes at current speed, sir. Double our escort when we drop out of warp. and prep the medical bay. He paused, studying the star chart with the intensity of someone trying to see through the veils of space itself. If Phantom is calling for extraction after 20 years of radio silence, whatever she's been doing out there, it's either finished or gone very, very wrong. The ship's AI chimed softly. Admiral, incoming priority transmission from Galactic High Command. On screen, the main display shimmered, revealing the imposing figure of General Morteus, the Council's supreme military commander. His reptilian features were set in hard lines, and his golden eyes blazed with urgency. Admiral Zektar, you will immediately abort your current heading and return to patrol duties. The Shadowlands remain under strict quarantine. General, with respect, we've received an extraction request from... I know exactly what you've received. Morteus leaned forward, his claws scraping against his command chair. And I'm ordering you to ignore it. Phantom's mission status has been classified as terminated for over a decade. Zektar felt his blood chill. Sir, are you saying she's been declared dead? I'm saying, Morteus's voice carried the weight of absolute authority, that some missions require sacrifices for the greater good. The Shadowlands contain threats that must remain contained. Whatever signal you received could be a trap, a wraith deception, or worse. Or, Zektar said quietly, it could be a hero asking to come home. The connection crackled with tension. Finally, Morteus spoke again, his voice softer but no less commanding. Admiral, I've read Phantom's file. All of it. What she's capable of. What she's done for this galaxy, it's beyond anything in recorded history. But sometimes even heroes must be sacrificed to protect what they've sworn to defend. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in heavy silence. Zektar stared at the darkened screen for a long moment, then turned to his crew. Every face, mammalian, reptilian, crystalline, or otherwise, watched him with rapt attention. You heard the General's orders, he said slowly. Then his mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. Unfortunately, we're experiencing technical difficulties with our long-range communications. I'm afraid his message was too garbled to understand. The communications officer's antennae perked up. Technical difficulties? Sir? Severe solar interference. Completely scrambled the transmission. We'll have to proceed with our original mission until we can re-establish contact. He turned to the helm. Maintain course and speed. As the ship hurtled through space toward the Shadowlands, Zektar found himself wondering what they would find at those coordinates. Would it be the legendary operative who had single-handedly ended a galactic war? Would it be something wearing her form, a trap set by entities beyond their understanding? Or would they find nothing at all, just empty space and the ghost of a signal from someone who had given everything to protect a galaxy that had forgotten her name but remembered her call sign? The answers waited in the darkness ahead, in a region of space where nightmares took solid form and heroes went to die. But Admiral Zektar had served long enough to know one absolute truth. When Phantom called, you answered. The galaxy owed her that much, even if it meant risking everything they had fought to protect. The flagship emerged from warp at the edge of the Shadowlands, and immediately every sensor on the bridge screamed warnings. Space itself seemed wrong here, twisted into impossible geometries that made experienced navigators queasy. Stars flickered like dying candles, their light bent and refracted through dimensional tears that shouldn't exist. Mother of moons, whispered the Kalani communications officer, her compound eyes reflecting the sickly purple glow that pervaded this region of space. The readings are off the charts. Energy signatures I've never seen before. Admiral Zektar studied the tactical display with growing concern. Where there should have been the chaotic storm of wraith activity they'd expected, there was something far more disturbing order. The energy patterns showed deliberate, almost geometric arrangements across multiple star systems. Sir, the crystalline navigator's voice chimed with worry. I'm detecting massive structural changes throughout the sector. Entire asteroid fields have been rearranged, and there's something that looks like construction on at least 6 planets. Construction? Zektar's mandibles clicked nervously. The wraiths don't build. They consume. This isn't wraith architecture, Admiral. The engineering is beyond anything in our databases. It's like someone took the raw energy of this region and shaped it into something purposeful. Before Zektar could respond, their sensors locked onto Phantom's signal. It was stronger now, coming from a small moon orbiting a dead star that pulsed with unnatural light. As they approached, the main screen revealed something that left the entire bridge crew speechless. The moon's surface had been transformed into a vast complex of crystalline structures that stretched from pole to pole. Energy conduits, visible from orbit, formed intricate patterns across the landscape. At the center stood a tower that defied physics, a spire of living light that pierced through the moon's atmosphere and extended into space itself. By the ancestors, breathed the young ensign. What is this place? A fortress, Zektar realized, recognition dawning in his 4 eyes. She's built a fortress in the heart of Wraith space. The communications array crackled to life, and a voice emerged that made every being on the bridge stand straighter, not from fear, but from an instinctive recognition of authority earned through unimaginable trials. Admiral Zektar, I assume. Permission to come aboard. The voice was human, female, and carried an odd mixture of exhaustion and unshakable determination. But what struck the crew most was how young she sounded, despite the weight of years evident in every word. Phantom, Zektar said, finding his voice. Permission granted. Are you injured? Do you require medical assistance? Negative on medical. But we need to talk. And we need to talk now. The situation has evolved. Within minutes, the transporter room was humming with activity. Zektar and his senior staff waited with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. The legendary operative they were about to meet had become something of a myth. Stories passed between ships, whispered in academies, debated in military journals, but no one had seen her in over 15 years. The transporter beam coalesced, and she materialized before them. She was smaller than they'd expected, perhaps 5.5 feet tall in her fitted black armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Her hair was white, not the silver of age, but the pure white of someone who had seen things that existed beyond normal comprehension. But it was her eyes that held their attention. They were human eyes, brown and warm, but with depths that suggested experiences no sentient being should have to endure. Admiral, she said, stepping off the transporter pad with fluid grace. Thank you for responding to my signal. I know High Command probably ordered you to ignore it. How did you? Because I know Morteus. He's a good general, but he thinks in conventional terms. He sees the Shadowlands as a containment problem. She gestured toward the nearest viewport, where the strange light of her fortress was visible against the twisted stars. I see it as a war that needed winning. Zektar's security chief, a massive Krogan warrior named Throg, stepped forward. You've been fighting the Wraiths for 15 years? Alone? Phantom looked at him with something that might have been amusement. Not fighting them, Throg. Teaching them. The silence that followed was deafening. Teaching them? The communications officer's antennae twitched in confusion. Sir, the Wraiths are pure energy. They don't have cognitive functions. They can't learn. That's what we thought too. Phantom moved to the viewport, her reflection ghost-like against the strange vista outside. But we were wrong about a lot of things. The Wraiths aren't invaders. They're refugees. She turned back to face the assembled officers, her expression serious. 15 years ago, I infiltrated their space expecting to find some kind of command structure, a weakness to exploit. Instead, I found them running from something else, something that had destroyed their dimension and was now bleeding into ours. Admiral Zektar felt his blood chill. Another threat? Worse than the Wraiths? Much worse. The Wraiths drain life force to sustain themselves, yes. But they're not malicious. They're starving. Their home dimension was consumed by entities called the Devourers, beings that exist only to unmake reality itself. She activated a small device on her wrist, and a holographic display filled the air between them. It showed a 3-dimensional map of local space, but with dimensions and energy flows that hurt to look at directly. The Shadowlands aren't just a Wraith stronghold, they're a battlefield. For the past 15 years, I've been working with the Wraiths to build defenses against the Devourers. That fortress you saw? It's not just mine. It's theirs, too. We've been partners. Throg's massive frame shook with what might have been laughter or horror. You're telling us you've been allied with beings that have killed thousands of council soldiers? I'm telling you, Phantom said quietly, that those beings saved our reality. The Devourers broke through into our dimension 6 months ago. Without the Wraith's help, they would have consumed every star in this galaxy by now. The holographic display zoomed in, showing energy patterns around nearby systems. To the trained eye, it was clear that something was wrong with the very fabric of space tiers and distortions that suggested reality itself was under assault. The Wraiths have been teaching me their energy manipulation techniques. In exchange, I've been teaching them human tactical thinking, our adaptability, our refusal to accept defeat. She smiled then, and for a moment, she looked her age young, despite the white hair and ancient eyes. Turns out, humans and energy beings have a lot in common when it comes to stubborn determination. Admiral Zektar processed this information, his mind racing through the implications. You're saying the Wraiths could have been allies all along? I'm saying the galaxy is about to face its greatest threat, and we need every ally we can get. Phantom deactivated the hologram and fixed him with an intense stare. I called for extraction not because I'm giving up, but because the next phase requires resources I don't have. The Council needs to know what's coming. And what is coming? The young ensign asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Phantom was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the strange light of her fortress. When she spoke, her words carried the weight of prophecy. War. Not the kind we've fought before, where species battle for territory or resources. This is war against the fundamental forces that would return the universe to primordial chaos. The Devourers don't just want to conquer, they want to uncreate everything that has ever existed. She turned back to face them, and in her eyes they saw something that made even the battle-hardened Admiral shiver. The good news is, we're not defenseless. 15 years with the Wraiths has taught me things about energy manipulation that could revolutionize our weapons technology. The fortress isn't just a stronghold, it's a factory. We've been mass-producing weapons and defenses specifically designed to fight entities that exist partially outside normal space-time. The bad news? Zektar asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. The Devourers have been studying us just as intensively as we've been preparing for them. They've adapted, evolved. And in approximately 72 hours, they're going to launch their main assault on the galactic core. The bridge crew exchanged horrified glances. The galactic core contained the Council worlds, the seat of civilization, the home systems of every major species. 72 hours? Throg rumbled. How do you know this? 70. Idea. Phantom smiled grimly. Because yesterday, they sent me an invitation. The Council emergency session convened in record time, representatives from across the galaxy gathering via quantum link to hear Admiral Zektar's report. But it was Phantom who stood at the center of the great amphitheater, her white hair catching the light as beings who had only heard whispers of her legend finally laid eyes on the operative who had shaped their recent history. General Morteus presided over the session, his reptilian features set in grim lines. Before we proceed, I wanted on record that this operative has been operating without authorization for over a decade. Her claims cannot be verified. With respect, General, interrupted Councillor Veltar of the Centauri Republic. Her previous claims about ending the hegemony war were also unverified, until they proved accurate. Phantom stood quietly in the center of the chamber, seemingly unbothered by the political maneuvering around her. She had seen too much, fought too long, to be intimidated by bureaucrats. When the chatter died down, she spoke in the same calm voice that had carried across battlefield communications for decades. Honored counselors, we can debate authorization and protocol after we've saved the galaxy. Right now, I need to show you what we're facing. She activated the same device from her wrist, but this time, the holographic projection filled the entire amphitheater. The assembled beings gasped as they saw reality itself mapped out, the normal space-time they knew, and the twisted dimensions that pressed against it like an infection. 3 days ago, The Devourers sent me a message through dimensional channels. Not in words, but in pure concept. They wanted me to understand exactly what they are and what they intend. The hologram shifted, showing a progression of dimensional destruction that moved like a virus through reality itself. Systems, galaxies, entire regions of space simply ceased to exist, leaving behind voids that hurt to perceive. They are not from our universe. They are from the spaces between universes, the anti-reality that existed before the first stars were born. Their sole purpose is to return everything to that primordial nothingness. Counselor Sekvan of the Hegemony Remnant leaned forward, her crystalline form refracting the hologram's light. Why are they targeting our dimension specifically? 23. Because we've become too complex, too organized. Apparently, there's a cosmic balance between creation and destruction, order and chaos. Our civilizations, our technologies, our very thoughts, we've pushed that balance too far toward order. From their perspective, we're an infection that needs to be cleansed. The hologram zoomed in on the galactic core, showing energy buildup patterns that resembled massive staging areas. They've been preparing for this assault for millennia, gathering strength in the dimensional gaps, waiting for the right moment. That moment is now. General Morteus's claws scraped against his podium. Even if we accept your assessment as accurate, what can we do? Our fleets, our weapons, they're designed to fight in normal space against conventional enemies. For the first time since entering the chamber, Phantom smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. That's where 15 years of unconventional warfare pays off. The Wraiths and I haven't just been building defenses. We've been developing weapons that can fight entities that exist partially outside reality. She gestured, and the hologram shifted to show the fortress moon. But now, they could see it in its true form, not just a structure, but a massive weapons platform that extended into dimensions they couldn't perceive. The fortress is actually a dimensional anchor. It locks this region of space into a stable configuration that the Devourers can't easily unmake. But more importantly, it's a factory producing weapons designed specifically for this threat. The display showed strange, organic-looking devices that seemed to shift and flow even in holographic form. Entropy disruptors, reality stabilizers, existence bombs, weapons that can hurt things that technically don't exist in our dimension. Counselor Veltar leaned forward. How many of these weapons do you have? Currently, enough to equip maybe 50 ships for a limited engagement. But with Council resources and the cooperation of every major military force in the galaxy, we could scale production dramatically. And you're certain these weapons will work against the Devourers? Morteus asked. Phantom's expression grew darker. I've tested them. When the Devourers sent me their invitation, they included a small advance force as a demonstration of their power. 12 entities that unmade everything they touched, matter, energy, even the memory of what had been there. She paused, letting that sink in before continuing. I destroyed 11 of them with the new weapons. The 12th I captured for study. The chamber erupted in astonished murmurs. The idea that anyone could capture something that could literally erase existence was beyond their comprehension. How? Whispered the young Kalani representative, her antennae trembling. Very carefully, Phantom replied dryly. And with a lot of help from my Wraith allies. Turns out, beings made of pure energy are very good at containing other beings made of anti-energy. She changed the display again, showing what looked like impossible geometric shapes contained within fields of living light. The captured Devourer has been extremely informative. They're not as alien as they first appeared. They have strategies, weaknesses, even something resembling emotions. What did you learn? Morteus demanded. They fear us. The statement hung in the air like a revelation. Not our weapons, not our fleets, but what we represent. Organic intelligence, chaotic creativity, the ability to adapt and overcome impossible odds. They've spent eons unminding perfectly ordered civilizations, but they've never faced anything like the alliance we've built here. What alliance? Counselor Sekvan asked. Us, humans, Centaurians, Hegemonians, Wraiths, and every other species willing to fight for existence itself. The Devourers expected to find the same rigid hierarchies they've destroyed elsewhere. Instead, they're facing something unprecedented, a multi-dimensional coalition united not by fear or conquest, but by a shared refusal to go quietly into that final darkness. Admiral Zektar, who had been quiet throughout the session, finally spoke. "What do you need from us?" "Everything." Phantom's response was immediate and unflinching. "Every ship, every weapon, every brilliant mind in the galaxy. This isn't a war where we can hold reserves or plan for strategic retreats. When the Devourers arrive in 60 hours, it's total victory or total annihilation." She gestured to the hologram one final time, showing the entire galaxy with dimensional weak points marked in pulsing red. They'll attack simultaneously at 17 points across the galactic rim, trying to destabilize reality itself. If even one attack succeeds completely, the cascade effect will unravel everything. You're asking us to commit every resource we have based on your word alone. Morteus said slowly. "No," Phantom replied, meeting his gaze steadily. "I'm asking you to commit everything based on what you know about humans. We don't give up. We don't surrender. And when someone threatens everything we've worked to build, we find a way to win." She stood straighter, and for a moment every being in the chamber could see why her call sign commanded such respect. 15 years ago, you bet on one human to end a galactic war. Today, I'm asking you to bet on all of them to save reality itself. The chamber fell silent as the council deliberated. Outside the station's viewports, stars twinkled peacefully, unaware that their very existence hung in the balance. Finally, Councillor Veltar spoke for the assembly. "By unanimous vote, the Galactic Council authorizes full mobilization of all available forces under your tactical command, call sign Phantom. May whatever gods still watch over us have mercy on our souls." Phantom nodded grimly. "Gods won't save us, counselors, but humans might. And with Wraith allies, dimensional weapons, and the stubbornness of every species that refuses to be erased from existence, that might just be enough." As alarms began sounding across the galaxy, and fleets mobilized for the most important battle in cosmic history, Phantom allowed herself one moment of human weakness. She thought of Earth, of the blue skies and green fields she hadn't seen in decades. Then she pushed the sentiment aside and began issuing orders. 60 hours to save everything that had ever been or ever could be. For a human who had already redefined impossible, it was just another Tuesday.